Hello and welcome to the first video of Piteous's Resto, Shaman and Healing Guide. I will be covering healing in raid environments, mainly all 25-man currently. I've seen a lot of strategy videos from TankSpot and StratFu simply say, bring X amount of healers. This is not too good for the healers themselves because they may not understand just how much damage the raid is taking, where it's coming from, and what heals are necessary to be used in such situations. The purpose of this video is thus to explain this, to put a healing twist on what TankSpot does for tanks. Now, the emphasis on this guide will be on healing mostly, obviously, but also Resto Shamans, as I am one, and I wanted to make this primarily as a tutorial for them, but I realized I should split off onto other healers. Emphasis on the Resto Shamans, however, will only be on the spec 1358, which I have displayed here. I'll explain a few choices I've made in here, as well as explain multiple healing concepts that should be constantly used in a raid environment. Examples of these will be shown in the strategy videos, as I explain what kind of fights they are, and what kind of healing concepts you should apply in such fights. Now, the first healing concept that I want to cover is very critical to healing. A lot of people don't actually use this too much and simply want to pad the meters. This is triage. Triage is something that doctors use in real life to determine which patients to treat first. The main concept of triage is that you should always focus your primary heals on whoever's taking the most damage or is about to die. Sometimes this means using a smaller, faster heal instead of your big, powerful, meter padding heal. Particularly for Resto Shamans, this means using a lesser healing wave instead of a chain heal if someone's about to die, or saving your Riptide for someone who's critically low on Mimiron with the heat wave debuff. The next concept I'll be covering is trinket procs for Resto Shamans and healers. Trinket procs tend to be fairly consistent, however there's usually a bit of a difference. A trinket proc that says on cast will typically only work as it says on cast. But these also normally will have a large internal cooldown, generally 45 seconds, and a very high proc rate, so you can assume once every 45 seconds you will get the buff. Now, trinket procs that have direct healing in their descriptor will typically proc off every single heal that will occur. Every heal over time tick from a druid, every chain heal bounce from a Resto Shaman. Thus these are very powerful for these sort of classes as opposed to a holy paladin. The next healing concept I will talk about is tidal waves for Resto Shamans. A tidal waves is such an incredibly powerful spell. It is very useful for triage. Back in the day it used to be chain heal, chain heal, chain heal, chain heal all the time. Tidal waves allow us to apply a triage effect by switching from healing waves, lesser healing waves, and chain heal. So it's very important we want to keep tidal waves up so we can triage effectively and make our heals more powerful. A tip to keeping tidal waves up is on fights where there's relatively low AoE damage, maintaining a Riptide on the tank will help keep tidal waves up, as well as applying a hearty instant heal to the tank every now and then, and giving them an extra hot, which is always helpful. The main concept we want to apply in tidal waves though is weaving, which is basically constantly keeping up the stacks of tidal waves and never using a healing wave or lesser healing wave when we don't have one. Thus weaving in between chain heal Riptide and healing wave, lesser healing wave. The next concept I will cover is using grid or a raid frame or anything that's similar. Now it's all about your style, you can choose anything, you can use clique, you can use keyboard bindings. Personally I like keyboard bindings because I have cast times on all my heals because I'm a Resto Shaman. That's just my choice. An important thing for a healer to understand though is when you first start healing, it's fine to look at grid, it's fine to just watch people's meters, but to be a truly effective healer, to truly apply triage healing and watching your overheals, you need to also pay attention to the environment. A fantastic example of this